grew up in a house that was dominated by verbal and physical abuse. I actually sold my house, everything except my car, and I actually was homeless. I can't sometimes let go of the people I let down.
Strategist, growth advisor, philanthropist, visionary, advised over 1,000 companies across 19 countries. Restaurant and Catering Australia Young Achiever of the Year. Compassionate, benevolent, lifelong learner.
Anyone who is a leader has to invest in their self-development. So if you're not getting better, then you're falling behind.
My initial impressions of you were that you are self-serving, egotistical, and boastful. And
that still hurts. That still hurts. Thank God we've made some changes, but that still hurts.
Welcome, Kristian. Really looking forward to our conversation today. For the purposes of our audience, can you summarize who you are and what you do?
Cool. Simi, thank you. It's amazing to be here. And look, keeping it short, you gave me a 10-second window. I've already just taken that 10 seconds for myself. But no, what do I do? I mean, I'm a husband and a father to two most lovable, amazing children that have changed my life. And then Lucy changed my life first. That's my wife. I'm a growth advisor and a chief strategist. And we help entrepreneurs find meaning, create wealth, and achieve freedom. Because it's really important to get the balance of all three things. And so, why do I do it? When I found my purpose was to change the world one person at a time, starting with me. And on that journey of change and discovery, I uncovered that helping other people achieve meaning, wealth, and freedom was my purpose. And I've been very fortunate to be on that journey.
Fantastic. And really looking forward to digging deep with you today and sharing lots about your story and the impact that you have had and that you'll continue to have, Kristian. I think for the purpose of the audience, though, it'd be really good to just share how we've come about getting to know each other and the journey that we've been on. Just to give a backstory, I came to one of your presentations here in Melbourne that you were delivering about a new program that you were launching. Having recently moved from the UK, from London to Melbourne, I was very keen to expand my network and also bring my business here to Australia. So for me to really learn how to market my business, my services, and to especially around digital marketing was really important for me. So that's why I came to the presentation. Now, Kristian, we've been working together for over 2 years, and I know I've shared this with you before. It's still hard for me to share it with you today because I find it...
It's still hard for me to listen to it, just so you know, right?
I find it confronting, Kristian. I have to say that. And the reason why is because my initial impressions of you were that you are self-serving, egotistical, and boastful. And
that still hurts. That still hurts. Thank God we've made some changes, but that still hurts.
It pains me to say that.
Yeah.
It really does, because as I've got to know you on this journey that we've been on together, I've seen a remarkably endearing side to you in terms of how you connect, you care for others, how empathetic you are, compassionate, and what a big heart you have.
Thank you. I can hear that all day long.
And it's really important for me to lean into this, Kristian, because that was quite a conflict with my initial perception of you. And I've developed a program called the Leader Mirror Immersion Program that really helps impactful leaders like yourself really dig deep using data and evidence. We've gone through a whole series of psychometrics to really unravel and unpack who you are And by that, I mean the dark side, the bright side of your personality, your values, your drivers. What is that inner core of Kristian? When we've gone through that program, and I shared that program with you, and you said, Simi, I'll invest in this program. I want to go through it. It's incredible the insights that have come out of that program. And I really want to bring those insights to life and bring them to the forefront, not just for you. We've had that conversation together, but I think for more people to know who you really are. Because that initial perception was a complete contrary to what I've really got to know and learn about who you truly are and who you are at the core. So tell me, Kristian, why did you want to invest in the program?
Well, I think you kind of answered it because, I mean, for me, that first impression that you had of me wasn't something you told me until only recently. And that was one of the main reasons why you said, hey, why don't we sit down on a couch and have this conversation? And it was a very vulnerable moment. And if I rewind back to when I decided to join the program, what I found was that I trusted you. And, you know, we'd spent some time together. You were in my program. I got to know what you were like. And I kind of went, this is someone who I can be vulnerable around and someone I can trust. But I also know that the program is going to get me that 1%. Little did I know that you had that original opinion, which obviously changed through the journey. But now it makes a lot of sense to me why you invested so heavily in me as well. And that's one of the wonderful traits that you have is, you know, we're similar. We invest in people. You know, even though they might be a client and they're doing the investment in us, we invest heavily back on them. That's the care factor. And I think that's synergy. The other reason was I'm really big on self-improvement. You know, I've been learning the art of self-reflection for a long time, and I don't think you can ever say that you've achieved, you know, 100%. So, you know, for me, it's finding those 1%, and I know that I have a challenge initially, and we've uncovered some of those, and we'll share them today, I assume. But for me, there's this constant need to want to grow, and that's one of the key reasons why I did it. I wanted to grow, and to be honest with you, I was fascinated when the psychosometric stuff. You know, I think I even said to you, I said one of the days I was particularly having a really challenging day when I decided to answer it, and when I put in the answers, I was like, oh, I want to take them back. And then I went, well, no, because that's actually a really true representation of who I am. It was a really difficult day, lots of clients, lots of challenges that they're having and that we had to navigate through. And I thought, no, that's going to give a true indication of the person that I am. And then when we did the workshop, and the multiple workshops, this dark side, bright side thing really got me intrigued. And, you know, another reason why we get along is I have fascination with psychology, and you know, I love Carl Jung's work, and you know, and Viktor Frankl's, you know, studies and research. So for me, this was all about self-discovery, and I think anyone who wants to, or anyone who is a leader, has to invest in their self-development. Otherwise, you're stuck where you are, and we're in a very competitive marketplace. So if you're not getting better, then you're falling behind, and you know, and that's, I guess, you know, when you find meaning in what you do, then you can follow through.
Absolutely. And Kristian, it was really important to me to help you have the realizations and the aha moments in the Leader Mirror immersion and our work together, because I really truly believe that if more people see the true Kristian, to see this, you know, endearing, compassionate hugely caring, empathetic person, the way in which you connect with others and the way in which others connect with you will be phenomenal.
And like you said, I want to be seen for the person that I am, not the person that people think I am.
Yeah.
You know, my tribe, we've got a pretty big tribe now, and I call them a tribe because, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, and sometimes, you know, I say to everyone, I'm the child and everyone's raising me. But, you know, we grow together. We fail together. And you can't do that without empathy and care.
Yeah.
And so you're right. You really made me aware of that, not just through the leader mirror exercise, but just even in just as our friendship has grown, and you as a professional, you know, as a psychologist, you've really made me aware of, hey, we need to get this right.
Yeah.
You know, because otherwise I'm not doing justice to the people that I can serve too. Like it's not about me. That's what I'm really starting to understand, and I think you know that. The people closest to me know that it's never about me, but what I project.
Correct.
Any leader out there who's listening to today, that's one of the biggest reasons why you should do this. I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
But the outcome has been that, and that's transformative.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what drives you? I don't want you to tell me surface level. We've been through a lot together, so let's get deep. What really drives you to do what you do?
Well, my purpose drives me, okay? And as I said earlier, you know, I was very fortunate that I went on a self-discovery some 10 years ago, well, probably 13 now, where I was very lucky to uncover my purpose, which is to change the world one person at a time, starting with me, in order to live your best life. And, you know, as I said, to me, that best life is having achieved meaning, wealth, and freedom.
Yeah.
And I deeply care about people, you know, and that's something that, you know, my team, a couple of years ago, we were doing our own review of our own strategy, and they all sat down around the table and said, Kristian, you know, we talk a lot about core competencies. Yeah. And they were, you know, Kristian, care is your biggest competency. And I'm like, care's a value. And I said, how can you differentiate care? Right? And a core competency has to be a totally different market differentiator for you. And they just said, have you not listened to anything that your clients tell you? That you care more about them than anybody in the world, and you demonstrate it, you do it. Yeah. And so we adopted that philosophy of care.
Absolutely. You do deeply care. Kristian, I know this is hard, and we're going to cover some of the hard stuff. Talk to me, you've shared it before, but what are some of those key moments of your upbringing, your past, that have shaped you into who you are today?
Look, on the journey of finding my purpose, I had to dig really deep with this. Yeah. And, you know, one of the earliest moments of my life was actually coming home. We were living in Munich. My father worked for the consul, for the consulates, so diplomatic corps. And I remember coming home, and I was looking for my favourite toy, and I kind of lost my shit. And I said to my mother, what's going on? She said, I gave it away. The nuns came, and they were looking for donations for toys, and you know, I thought that this was the toy that, you know, you loved it so much that others would love it. Give away my favorite toy. Yeah. On the journey, I realized that lesson, and I would have been just about 5 years old. That lesson taught me about giving, and giving with a generous heart. Didn't teach me that people give away your stuff and it should piss you off. And this is where two people can go down two different paths. And for me, it was that philanthropic path. So the reason why I can now talk about all this, I've taken all these steps. So for me, my childhood was very challenging by the world standard. You know, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I was very lucky. You know, my parents provided for me to go to schools. I mean, I got expelled a couple of times. So I wasn't the ideal, boy. But, I grew up in a house that was dominated by verbal and physical abuse. And so, my father was extremely heavy-handed, very violent. And, sometimes you'd come home and, I got a detention and I ended up getting a lashing for it. Not like a slap. One very, distinct memory is being chased around the house, running for my life because I was being chased with the, rubber hose.
Yeah.
And, if you can get being hit with a rubber hose, and I forgive my father for it. It's not, I now realise that that's his own self-control, his own challenge, his own issues. I don't think for 1 minute my father didn't love me. But that sets you on a journey that you can either be a victim or you can be a victor. And for me, in that physical area, it didn't really affect me. I got on with it. In fact, it drove me to be a really good athlete, and I excelled a lot at sport.
Yeah.
I used my sheer size to my advantage, but never to drive fear or to intimidate others. I got bullied at school too, and and beating people in handball and beating them on the basketball court, that helped me overcome the bullyingness. And I had a lot of other really positive influences in my life, like my grandparents were really amazing human beings, and from both sides of the family. And I spent a lot of time growing up with them independently, so I learnt the value of hard work from my maternal grandparents, and I learnt care, I think, in many ways from two very strict paternal grandparents, but they loved me, and you could see it, and I lived with them for a while my parents were still in Munich.
Yeah.
And, I went back and spent some time looking after my grandmother while she was dying of pancreatic cancer. Very tough to do.
That would have been extremely hard.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much held both of my grandmothers 20-odd years apart, on the day they died. And, I still struggle with that because they were two very important people in my life. And I've had a lot of significant women in my life that have helped me. And I'm very lucky that I'm supported by, probably the best woman in the world, only because, she loves me unconditionally. She puts up with me. She allows me to live my dreams. And, often she'll put her dreams on hold for me. And so, I'm learning to now support her in her journey, in her art and in her passion for what she wants. And so I don't think you ever stop learning, Simi. I think that's what I'm alluding to. And for me, that's been the magical moments of uncovering who I am along this journey.
From a wealth perspective, you became successful very quickly. You also lost that too. Talk to us about that.
Success has never been that far from me, and nor has failure. and I think when I was younger, I was just so ambitious and so driven and so stupid. You're a participant, with the guys like Mike Cannon-Brooks and Scott Farquhar at Atlassian win the Entrepreneur of the Year program, and that's your competition. For me, I fell into the trap of just assuming that I was capable, even though I had the right guidance and the mentors in my life. You got to be prepared to listen to these people, and that's probably the reason why now I have such a passion to help any entrepreneur wherever they are in the journey. And because I've been through all of that turbulence, all of that adversity, all of that agitation, and like everyone, I've sabotaged my own path unknowingly. And so for me, as I went on the journey, I just I kept winning and winning and winning, but I wasn't realizing that I was actually failing along the way, wasn't acknowledging the failures. And then, overcapitalized on investments. Those investments didn't follow through. I mean, I could be telling a totally different story now if I'd just done a few things differently. But ultimately, for me, it was, I made some really good decisions, but I also made some bad ones. But I also didn't consider the circumstances. So, I always define pre-2010 Kristian 1.0, who was reckless and, was driven by validation.
Yeah.
And that was all from the childhood trauma.
Of course.
Trying to prove, not to my father, but to the world that I was capable and I was able.
Yeah.
And, even through the journey that we've done now, which is Kristian 4.0, we're still uncovering that I still have the challenges, that self-doubt, especially when I initially meet people. And so, I use the same techniques that have helped me get to where I am now, and I'm still using them. Yeah. And I think that's the challenge, and that's what really has uncovered on this journey with you, is that, and this is where people get that initial perception of me, is because I'm still using the same techniques that got me here, which is, let me walk you through my journey. And this is why now it's so hard, because people ask you, walk me through your journey. And my brain's like, no, right? That's exactly what I'm not meant to do. But it's so hard because, your instinct as an entrepreneur, as someone who's had self-doubt, as someone who's had to, work really hard to get to where I am without some silver spoon, without some big investor backing them. I always went solo. That was also another mistake, because I always wanted to eat the biggest piece of pie, and clearly I ate way too much pie. Whereas now it's, for me, the last 5 years have been transformative. It's all about win-win. I've improved as a human being. And it's like, wow. So you just know how much you've grown in that time.
Absolutely. I'd really like to know, what is really important to you?
That one's easy. Lucy and my children. And our French bulldog, Louis.
Oh, yes.
Even if I lost everything again, and at start, I have my family now, and everything I do is for Leo and Lavender and Lucy. Even the level of risk aversion that I've developed around, investments and projects. Yeah. Lucy coming into my life changed my life. A lot of my friends say, a lot of my female friends say to me, "You really grew up." It's like this moment, but you're still the same person. And I find parenting a real challenge. It's not my comfort zone. Talk
to me a little bit about that. What is not in your comfort zone?
Oh, look, I'm not patient. And I've had to learn patience. I've had to learn a deeper empathy.
Yeah.
I'm used to people listening and doing exactly what I tell them to do.
Good luck.
My children don't do that. There are so many similarities with running a business.
Yes.
There is growing up your family, but the only difference is your business is not your baby. And I say this to all our clients who often come to me and they're like, "Oh, my business is everything." I'm like, "No, it's not." Listen to someone who's been involved in 80 ventures, where more than 30 or 40 failed, right? Yeah. You can't fail your children. And I think that's what we all try and never do.
Yeah.
But I constantly feel like I'm failing when it comes to my children, because it's just an area, it's not my strength.
What's the biggest learning you've had with your children?
There's been so many. I just think the biggest lesson for me is that unconditional love, and that empathy that you need to have, because they're learning, they're really unfolding. Like watching my children learn how to stand up as an entrepreneur was one of the greatest moments of my life. I never forget, and I'll use Leonardo as an example because that was my first experience of it. That's our boy. I wanted to go out and buy a helmet. He was just smashing his head everywhere. I couldn't stop almost crying because I'm like, "Lucy," and she's like, "Are you actually Googling?" I said, "Yeah, it says not to buy them a helmet." I'm like, so obviously other parents go through this too. Yeah. But watching him get up on all fours, or initially roll, then get up on all fours, then try and stand up, or sit up was the first step, and then try and stand up. And then it was wobbly and more wobbly. It fascinated me because I kind of went, where have we as adults forgotten this process?
So true.
It blew my mind, Simi. So out of all the lessons, I think that was fundamentally being able to single-handedly witness and being present enough. And I think that's the other thing. You've got to be present. They don't want hours and hours of your attention. My two do. but they're like their father. They need a lot of attention. But the thing is, they just want concentrated attention and know that when you come home, you've got to be home.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying. There's so many lessons.
Yeah.
But that one about watching Leonardo learn, I mean, as adults, if we can remind ourselves of that, we will never be concerned about agitation or disruption.
Yep.
You know, or getting a knock. You know, and a knock is not succeeding at something. You know,
We can get back up. You touched upon your upbringing. A big part of your upbringing instilled this element of protection in you, where you really felt that you needed to become this protector. Can you just talk a little bit about where that came from and what that means for you?
when you grow up in the environment that I was in, which, by the way, the more I think about it, the more I'm really grateful, you know, for that agitation, that disruption, that adversity, you know, even the violence to some extent. I mean, I could never raise my hand against my own children. An adult, you know, if they overstep the boundaries, might end up with a slap, maybe. But I think that's probably one of the biggest values. It was like, you know, how do you use non-violent communication to get what you want, right? And I can be pretty, you know, I'm 6'3", 6 foot wide, you know, big, loud. So I've got to always manage that, you know, and I like to move my hands. So, you know, even when I'm on stage, I have to be really conscious of how fast I move and what I do, because it can be very intimidating. So in terms of my childhood and sort of where it led me to now, around being protective, when you grow up in that environment, I think I always kind of had to protect my mother. That was step one, because he would be violent to all of us. Less to my brother, more to me, and then my mother defending me would result in other issues. But being able to see that, and also feeling like I have to protect my brother, and then that's kind of then led to me being a protector all the way through. But I also think that's purely because also of my size. You know, when I saw my friends being bullied at school, I kind of always jumped in and was like, "Hey, let's sort this out." I did chuck a couple of guys into rubbish bins at school because they were bullying my friends, and they refused to listen. I mean, they played football and I played rugby, so there was also that rivalry. And in fact, one of those people I actually have a very good relationship with now, and we've been friends all the way through since that moment in time.
Oh, wow.
I look at those moments in my life through all the reflection that I've done, and you know, for me, it makes sense, you know, and so it makes sense that I've got a protective nature, but I'm also then now very protective of my clients.
Yes.
You know, I intimately care about the relationships they have at home.
Yeah.
I intimately care about the relationships that they have with their family. You know, and I think a lot of people in my line of work, they don't get into that. Yeah. They think it's crossing a boundary. Whereas because my philosophy is about bringing meaning to their life, I can't complete their journey to freedom.
No.
I can help, anyone can help you make money.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, this is, you know, I say to people, if you're coming to me to help you make money, then you've probably, you know, you've made a good decision. You know, my team would say you've made a good decision. If you want to learn how to get free from not just yourself or from the self-sabotage, but if you want to become, you want to set yourself free where you're doing what you do because you love it, because we bring meaning to it, then you're going to make even more money.
And I think it's that sense of feeling fulfilled, Kristian.
Yeah.
You know, really helping people feel fulfilled.
And fulfillment comes with energy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, I think I say it to you all the time, I say it to everyone.
Yeah.
One of the biggest takeaways that I've ever had from Tony Robbins is, you know, where focus goes, energy flows. Yeah. And it's so real, it's so true in everything. And don't just use it in the context of, well, you know, if you put your attention to something, you know, where your focus really goes, energy will flow to it.
Yeah.
And then if you allow the universe to work with you, it will actually serve you. It'll open up doors. And, you know, I always say to people, it's not the circumstances that you're in that defines your future. It's the decisions you make.
Oh, absolutely.
Or the decisions you don't make. And so, and this is, I think, again, that commitment that I have to not being a victim. I'm always going to be a winner. I'm always going to be a victor. Winning doesn't mean that you're always going to win. You're going to fail. You know, I take lots of inspiration from Michael Jordan. You know, and he always says, you know, when he gets asked, what is the singular thing that made you Michael Jordan? And he said, it's the shots I missed. You know, it's the failures that he had because he then put his attention to it.
Of course.
You know, where everyone talks about all the jump shots that he made on the buzzer beaters, but he talks about the 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever the number is that he missed.
Of course, yeah.
And I think so many people miss that in his communication, you know. You want to galvanise your team. Well, you galvanise them by not doing more of the same. You galvanise them by doing activities that are fun and celebrate their achievements and celebrate regularly.
Yeah.
You know,
and play to their strengths.
Correct. And I take inspiration, you know, from Maverick Top Gun, you know.
Yeah.
Probably the most important scene in that entire movie is when they tell him that, you know, the mission, you know, Dagger has been, you always name a mission, right? Because if you name it, it gets done, right? You know, and so what does he do? He takes Dagger 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out on the beach to play gridiron, to try and galvanise them. Why? Because they were all individuals. They were 1, 2, 3, and they're all the best of the best.
Yeah.
So, you know, these are all the things that you learn from, you know, and a lot of these things I think you learn from your childhood. You learn from that adversity.
Let's look at the data. So with the psychometrics, Kristian, off the charts, one of the areas that we look at is altruism. 100th percentile in altruism you scored. Talk to me about that altruistic side of yours. The altruism in terms of how much you value serving others. You've got a very philanthropic nature. Talk to me about that side of you.
I think for me, giving has always been something that stemmed from that initial moment when my mother gave away that toy. And I think that was an embedded value at that moment. And it was about, you know, giving to those that needed more. And over the years, that developed into, you know, as I amassed wealth and success in Kristian 1.0, you know, I just used to give things away. You know, and I'll never forget my accountant one day rang me up and he said, listen, this year you've donated $250,000. Like, that's a lot of money to be giving away and you're not accounting for it. You're not leveraging it. And I just looked at him and I said, mate, have you ever looked at the people we're giving it to? Right? And, you know, it was the homeless. It was you know, underprivileged youth, women who had endured domestic violence. I said, these are things that are important to me. And he goes, yeah, but Kristian, you're running out of money. And I was like, right. And I guess the motto there is that I was giving without consciously giving.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a balance between those two things. And so, interestingly enough, when I had to sell everything, I actually sold my house, everything except my car, and I actually was homeless. I spent 2 weeks couch surfing, slept in the car a couple of times.
When was this, Kristian?
This is end of 2009.
Yeah.
Early 2010. You know, and to go from
very difficult time
where I'd been to where I was, you know, and you know, the embarrassment that comes with that and all those things. But there was one thing that I never stopped doing, even when I had no money. That was giving. You know, I'd go and cook at the local soup kitchen. And why? Because I think when you give, there is a really important part of your own DNA that functions and allows you to be true to who you want to be. And so, yeah, we've maintained a very philanthropic approach. But I've got to say that becoming a philanthropist opened so many doors. The moment I understood what I was doing and why I was doing it, and after I had gone through that loss of myself, you know, I doubled down. I became, you know, an ambassador for youth opportunities, you know, where, you know, we used my so-called fame to our advantage, and you know, I'd be auctioned off live at auctions. It's a very daunting feeling, by the way. You know, where you've got all these other amazing philanthropists, you know, throwing money at you to cook in their house for 8 people, and you're going for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and then, you know, me wanting to create a unique and wonderful experience for these people. And that's where those people got to see the real me behind the scenes, behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And some of my best friends and mentors are those people who stuck deep into their pockets to give. And so that gives you an inspiration to give. And, and then, what was it, 5 years ago, one of my mentors, Tony Keynes, OAM, came to me and said, I want to start a scholarship fund, generational scholarship fund at St. Peter's for boys who can't afford to come to the school, but they have an athletics background and we're all ex-aths. And I was like, count me in, Tony. He's like, you sure? Count me in. And so we commit to that 3 years every cycle. We've now got another cycle, and Aiden, who went through the program first, he made us so proud. He not only excelled at athletics, he's an Australian champion, will probably go to the Olympics. But his academic journey, his results, and he built, so we were able to contribute to another family and to another person.
Yeah.
And now we've got another young man who's doing it. And now Lucy and I have recently been talking about donating portions of her art to the Wolford program for a young girl who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to go to the school, to be able to go on a full arts scholarship. So, and I think these things are not to say how amazing we are. I think everyone has an obligation to do so. And one thing I'm finding is that we don't talk about this a lot, but now in the circle of friends that we do, it's inspiring our friends to then contribute. And it's such a beautiful experience to be around. And, and look, we can afford to, right? That's the reason why as well. And I understand a lot of people can't, but everyone can afford to give up their time, you know? And, I have a corporate social responsibility program where we allow one person every 12-week cycle who can demonstrate to us by means testing that they can't afford to work in one of our programs, and we let them in free. And 2 of those are now my one-on-one clients. That was the journey from 3 years ago. These were people who couldn't afford to even pay a few $1,000s for a session, and now paying $7,000-8,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's not through their sheer loyalty and the love and admiration that we've created for one another. It is because they put in the work. They got given an opportunity, and that's what I love. I love seeing people take their chances and own them.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's, I'm actually really inspired while I'm saying this, because that's what motivates me. That's what really, truly drives me. It's something that fuels every cell in my body, and it stems from the giving.
And I've seen you then completely back that person, support them and back them, because that's what you're really...
If they show me... People show me courage.
Yeah.
And they show me, and not just me, the team, I'll give you everything I got.
Yeah.
Right? And I was saying to your amazing husband, Harvey, if I could do my job for free, like if I won that Powerball, I'd do my job for free.
I want to take you to a moment and a beautiful story. When I read this in the papers about you helping Alex. Talk to us about this, because this blew my mind. You could call it a risk that you put yourself in, put the business in, but if we turn it around, the actual opportunity that you gave this young man.
Alex Kolberg, what a wonderful human being. I didn't see Alex as a risk at all. The world did. Alex turned out to be probably one of my best apprentices that I've ever taught in a kitchen. Alex came to me through the Royal Society for the Blind, through a really good friend of mine, Catherine Gill. And Catherine said, look, I want you to meet this boy. He's legally blind, but he wants to be a chef. I was like, that I can do miracles, but this might be one that I might not be able to do. And she goes, you've come out of retirement to go back into the kitchen in the burger bar while you've been running all the other companies. It'd be really good if you just took a look at him. The day I met Alex, I didn't see any disability. I'm getting emotional. I saw a boy, a man, who had been told his whole life he couldn't do what he wanted to do because he was legally blind. And I just went, and yet here he was standing in front of me saying, this is my dream. Well, who in the hell am I to not give someone their dream? And it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And Alex completed his full apprenticeship with me. He ended up running the business, ended up buying into the business, went on to, get married, have his own family. And, and there were trials and tribulations. At the beginning we had to navigate how we're going to work in the kitchen. Every time we grabbed a knife, it was like, okay, dude, use your fingers as a guide.
Yeah.
But it was about trusting him and allowing him to be him, and he never let me down. Like any young man who you give everything to, you got a bit egotistical and a bit confident, and all the bits and pieces. But I'd failed enough to be able to guide him through that. And it's really interesting. He actually messaged me the other day. I got tears in my eyes. He messaged me the other day asking me, hey, chef, I want to write a cookbook and I want to go to all the people that influenced me on food.
Yeah.
Can you contribute to it? I know you're not doing anything in this area at the moment. And I said, yes, I would. But yeah, look, that was never about me. It was about Alex.
Yeah.
I think hopefully that came through in what I said. I just gave him the opportunity. He took it, but again, who am I to say no to someone wanting to live their dream and actually doing it? There's so many people that talk about doing.
Yeah.
And he, as I said, I never saw a disability. I just saw Alex, and the ABC came after everyone started talking about this. They were like, "What in the hell's going on?" And Alex and I never talked about it. It was, Royal Society for the Blind and other people, and even the crew from ABC. Then was it the morning show? They came too. I think it was Koshi. I don't remember who it was, but yeah. And for Alex, it was really rewarding, but for our whole team, it was rewarding. So when you do good, and this is the meaning part that I talk about, yes, did that help us make money? Absolutely. Did more people come to us because of that? Absolutely. But none of that would have happened if we didn't have meaning and purpose and energy and we weren't aiming for fulfillment. And I think this is the story I try and educate people on. You got to live with purpose, or else you're going to find yourself, living an unfulfilled life and being miserable. And this is why, you're a psychologist. I don't have to tell you this. This is why so many people struggle today, And I always say to people, give yourself the best opportunity to live life to the fullest.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a dream, then go for it. Don't expect someone else to do it for you, though.
Let's look to fulfill that dream. And it's unfortunate many people do appear to have achieved so much, but still feel very hollow inside. What I love about the story that you share here with Alex in particular is I define leadership as being that capability to really help people around you feel seen, heard, and valued. And this is a fantastic example of how you've enabled that to happen.
Thank you. Alex enabled himself. I think that, being a leader is actually not that hard. It's being the follower that's hard, right? A movement is never actually created by the first mover. It's actually it's actually the first follower.
Yeah.
And I'm always fascinated by that. And so you as a leader, you got to surround yourself with really amazing people who are inspired not by you but by their own desire to excel.
I think in terms of your trust and how you establish that trust with others, how did I come to trust you? Was because I saw this side in you that you are willing to listen, that you're willing to listen, take on board, be receptive to feedback. You're also willing to be vulnerable. And I think, coming back to what we said earlier, this takes courage. To go through this process really takes courage and a real deep level of vulnerability. The more that we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with others, it disarms the person sat in front of you. And when you disarm people, they take a step closer to you. Each time you do that, they take a step closer and closer. And that's where that trust really gets established. So, it's interesting that we have this conversation because it brings us back to the whole purpose of why I wanted you to go through the program, for you to see that just making those small changes in how you interact, how you engage, how you make people feel when they're in your presence, Kristian, will help them feel seen, heard, recognized and valued. In that way, they're going to trust you a lot quicker. And there's no reason why people shouldn't trust you.
Thank you.
But, going back to what we've learned through the process, the program together as well, you're deeply grateful. You come from a place of gratitude for all that you have, for the interactions that you have with others. Talk to me about this approach of gratitude and what it means for you.
I mean, look, I don't see it in the same way that maybe you do. I mean, to me, I've earned everything that I've been given in life. I'm lucky to be alive. I've done some really stupid shit in my life. And there's been some circumstances that I have put myself into that, if there wasn't a greater purpose in this world for me, then I wouldn't be here. I now understand exactly why you wanted to do this, because this is stuff that I normally wouldn't talk about.
I know.
And so for me, I don't really know how to frame it in any other way other than you're wasting your life if you're not grateful.
And the simplest things around you become the wow. Because you're grateful.
The smallest thing.
The smallest, simplest things become the wow.
Like I told you, I cheated last night, this morning. I was going to message Lucy. I cheated.
The croissant. Don't worry about it.
What are you doing on
No, ignore it.
I mean, I'm not allowed to eat carbohydrates. I'm on a diet. I've got a deal going on with people. My customers are going to be very happy. But I was staying at the Pullman, opposite Taylor Swift's concert, and sitting there, and the hotel makes the most amazing pastries.
Oh, amazing.
And they had this almond croissant.
Oh, you're still thinking about it. You devoured it.
And you know what? I have no guilt. I'm so grateful that it was there. My waistline isn't going to be grateful, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm grateful for all the people that put all of that effort together. And I think this is the thing that people don't understand. Like, I greet the hostess at the door with a smile. I greet the breakfast chef with a smile. I greet other patrons with a smile. And some people think that I'm kind of a bit weird sometimes because I'm just like, it's like, good morning. But the thing is, it's because I'm genuinely grateful and happy. And it changes people's energy. And
even yesterday, when the coffee, Simi, thank you so much for the coffee. Just those small things. And
but that's real, right? Like it's, I see people that do that fake, whereas I'm kind of like,
no, it comes from,
I'm proper happy.
It comes from a sincere place. But look, the gratitude, I'm absolutely big on gratitude as well. From a psychological science perspective, the more gratitude. In fact, it only takes 2 minutes of gratitude per day to increase your serotonin and your dopamine levels.
Wow.
Feel good hormones.
Can you put up a mirror and like tell yourself how grateful you are for you? And would that work for 2 minutes? No, I'm just trying to find other really cool
I'm sure you can find techniques. 2 minutes in your day.
All right, I might find it very hard to be grateful for myself for 2 minutes, but I think the key is it's not hard to be grateful.
No,
that's probably the key point there. It's not hard to be grateful, and I think so many people, live a life. They live someone else's life. Right? Like, I meet people and that's how I make a distinction as who I'm going to work with.
Yeah.
If I see that you are, trying to live someone else's life and you are, only self-serving and you don't really want to participate in the community and do other, I just go no.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason is because, again, those people will be energy zappers, not energy givers.
Yeah.
And so you've got to surround yourself with people that give as well. And I think this is where the philanthropy, the giving, the gratitude, and all of those other elements kind of come together. to
I
form,
agree.
I think an individual and a being that can contribute and live within this universe that we call home.
An aligned human
Yeah.
being. I think it's important for us to talk about one of the challenges that you feel you've battled with for the years. And there's probably elements of this that you still work through, and that is imposter phenomenon. So as a psychologist, the official term is imposter phenomenon. And that is when we really feel that we are potentially not as good as others think that we are. We're going to be exposed. We have self-doubt. And that self-doubt at times can be quite debilitating in terms of our performance and our impact. Talk to me about when imposter phenomenon started to show for you and when you realised that this is what you've been experiencing.
I can't sometimes let go of the people I let down.
Yeah.
Right? And that's my nature. And I can't, and this is why with my tribe, with the people in my circle, I don't let them down.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Even like when it was yesterday morning when I was flying out,
Yeah.
it only realised, because my diary is so curated, I didn't realise that my mastermind call was at the same time I was boarding. And lucky that Tay-Tay was flying in, so they pushed my flight out. But I would have stayed and taken that call all the way through the boarding gate.
Yeah.
And my tribe know that I'm so dedicated to them.
So committed.
And I don't need to, in their eyes, I go over and beyond. To me, I'm just doing my job. It's my service.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing. So, to me, it's those lessons. It's those moments of trial and tribulation, those moments of agitation. It's what you do with them that counts. Imagine, we wouldn't even be sitting here if I decided, what the original decision I made with Lucy was, okay, well, let's sell the 15 companies, let's take our money and let's move overseas. That's actually what we were planning to do. That's why I sold everything. I got out of my property developments. I got out of, all my other businesses, the tech companies, and I just sat there and went, well, crap, I actually have money. I didn't even realize we'd made the money because I was never doing it to make the money.
No.
And yeah.
But it's interesting, Kristian, because the more and more that I learn about you and our interactions, for you, it's when you tell me about these experiences, the few significant ones that haven't gone so well for you recently, I hear the pain. I see the pain in you. It hurts because that is completely the opposite impact that you want to have and that that you can have.
And I think that's why it hurts so much more.
Yeah.
And that's why, the work that we've started doing and the work that we did and the other self-reflective work I've done, but even though you can get it right in one moment, you got to get it right in every moment. Like being a leader, being a responsible leader is a really hard job. And I think this is where I put so much pressure on myself. And so this year, on top of everything else, I've decided to give myself more space.
Good.
More time, more space. That's in order to create the freedom block. And and Bronwyn's loving that because she's always been talking to me about time and space. And that's where I'm now diving into. Last year I made a promise to myself to read 52 books, and I got to 53. Being a high achiever, I had to push myself through the last one. Now I didn't read them all; I listened to them.
Yeah.
And this year I'm actually got a new reading list of 6 or 7, but I'm reading back the ones that I know can impact me and help me grow.
Yeah.
So there's this huge element of personal growth that I think every leader needs to have. And that's whether it's doing a program with you or with someone else or just your own. But you've got to have a balance of all of these things because it's very, very hard.
I want to just thank you wholeheartedly for being vulnerable, for opening up. I know it's not been easy, but you know what? You've done it. You've leaned into it with such grace, with such humility. And I really want to thank you for entrusting me in taking you through the process, helping you to just have some of those nuggets of insight and awareness. I know you've done so much self-development previously, but you've wholeheartedly been so open and committed to this process. So I want to thank you deeply. And I'm really honoured to have your trust. It's something I don't take lightly. And I just want you to know that I'm a big fan and very supportive of what you do, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing your transformation continue.
Simi, I think I accept all of that, but I'm actually the one that's really grateful. What I've learnt on this journey with you, particularly doing the Leader Mirror immersion, is I came in looking for the 1%, and I got more than that. And I think that's why I agreed to come here and do this documentary with you. It's a very surreal experience to be sitting here and having to share some of these things, and I've only been able to share them with you because you have guided me and helped me and convinced me that this is something we need to do. But during this whole process, I didn't think that I could keep learning at the rate that I'm learning, and I've learned more from, I've learned just as much from doing the program as I have sitting on the couch with you today. And that's a real testament, because I learned a lot, but through hanging out with you and being forced to reflect even deeper, and I think that's your magic, that's your skill, and I think I'm the one that's incredibly grateful for the opportunity, and I can't wait to go home and tell my children about the experience that I had, and I can't wait for them to watch, I think a very true representation of their father, and I think that's the magic. So thank you.